8:40 here, and I've got a peaceful, easy feeling, and I know that you won't let me down, because I'm already standing on the ground. So you know that that Eagles song, "I've got a peaceful, easy feeling." So there's some profound lyrics in this song. Right. I found out a long time ago what a woman can do to your soul, but she can't take you any way you don't already know how to go. So people often want to blame a book for sending them off course, or people may want to blame a podcast for sending them off course. People may want to blame alcohol or cocaine for sending them off course. But alcohol is not going to send you anywhere you don't want to go. And a book's not going to send you anywhere that you don't want to go. So if you're a Christian, you can read Charles Darwin's Origin of Species, and it's not going to do anything to your Christianity unless you're looking for a way out to escape your Christianity. No, I don't actually smoke anything. I just use this light for visual effects. So you can also read Bertrand Russell's book, Why I'm Not a Christian. And if you're intent on staying a Christian, you're not going to deviate, right? A book's not going to take you anywhere you don't want to go. Alcohol, generally speaking, is not going to take you anywhere you don't want to go. YouTube is not going to take you anywhere you don't want to go. All right, so a book, a YouTube video, a podcast, it can do things to your soul, but it's not going to take you anywhere that you don't already know where to go. So I love those lyrics. I was talking about these topics with a friend in 12-Step Recovery today, and I pointed out that there's this book. Here, I'll grab it. The Limits of Orthodox Theology. And there was this one Orthodox rabbi who was the head rabbi at a Jewish day school in Dallas, and he read this book, and it started him on a journey to atheism. But he only went on a journey to atheism because he wanted to go on that journey. That book didn't send him off into atheism without him having any choice for himself. All right, so a woman can do things to your soul, a book can do things to your soul, a film can do things to your soul, but it's not going to take you anywhere you don't want to go. So there used to be this kind of hypodermic needle theory of information, that if you just got shot with some information, that it would just completely transform you. And you can also call this like the zombie bite theory of information. So if I tell you to go out and read a certain book, and that book sends you off course in life, that book didn't send you off course in life. It simply unleashed what was latent in you, took what was latent in you and made it explicit. It released that energy into the world. So YouTube is widely blamed for radicalizing people. And there are two Penn State political scientists, Kevin Munger and Joseph Phillips, who've been studying YouTube politics and the spread of extremist content on YouTube. And they pan this theory that people become radicalized through YouTube, because you don't watch a YouTube video and become a zombie. So he writes, in the current narrative, YouTube audiences are at risk of far-right radicalization. Hey, Bernard, how's that night shift working out for you? It just sounds like hell. So the current narrative is that YouTube audiences are at risk of far-right radicalization because YouTube's algorithm is designed to maximize the company's profits via increased audience time, and increasing people's audience time on the platform leads them to watching more far-right videos. But this isn't true. The algorithm on YouTube does not lead users down a rabbit hole into which they become trapped. All right? YouTube can do things to your soul, but it's not going to take you anywhere you don't already know how to go or want to go. Right? You're not forced to watch hours of alternative media content, and you don't automatically become hardened opponents of liberal democratic values and mainstream knowledge production institutions. So this notion that YouTube radicalizes people is just an unfortunate update of widespread thinking in the 1930s and 40s of the hypodermic needle model of media effects. So now you can call it the zombie bite model of YouTube radicalization. So, people who watch some, right-wing YouTube videos, that they become infected and then the infection spreads. And it's bogus. I got off doing night shifts Wednesday, going back on day shift March 10th. Okay. Well, what did it do to your soul? If far-right content on YouTube is uniquely powerful, zombifying people after a single exposure, liberal democracy is in a very dark place indeed. Fortunately, the evidence says otherwise. There's no reason to believe that the YouTube algorithm has a noteworthy effect on the audience for alt-right content. The random walk algorithm beginning on an alt-right video, taking 5 steps, randomly selecting one of the 10 recommended videos, will only be recommended video from the alt-right approximately 1 out of every 1,700 trips. So for a random walker beginning at a control video from the mainstream media, the probability is so small that it's difficult to see on the graph. It's certainly no more common than 1 out of every 10,000 trips. So while viewers of less extreme videos may indeed have been recommended more extreme videos, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are enchanted by it. So some people do get deeply into hateful and fringy content, but YouTube did not create that audience. YouTube simply makes content creation so easy that fringe political actors can tap into an existing base of disaffected individuals who are already alienated from the mainstream. So there's this thinking in England, very widespread thinking in England, that alcohol has these magical effects on people. That particularly the English seem to believe in the magical effects of alcohol. But you can find hordes of young men in England congregating, gambling, drinking large amounts of alcohol at a sporting event without getting into any fights or causing any trouble at all. And where do they do this? They do this at races, at horse races. Now, you put them in a different context, such as a soccer match and on a Saturday night binge, and they'll engage in conduct completely different from their conduct at the horse races. And if you ask them why, why do you behave one way at a soccer match and on a Saturday night binge, but a very different way at the races? Well, everyone knows you don't cause trouble at the races, or it's just a fact, right? It's just an unspoken rule that everybody obeys. So this is really a matter of expectation. So where young males are treated as responsible, decorous adults, they will generally behave as such. Where young males are treated like children, criminals, or wild beasts, they conduct themselves accordingly. So it's just interesting how people want to blame, everything but people's own choices. The island races, so the English and the Japanese, tend to be very polite, but in England anyway, they have this belief in the magical effects of alcohol to shed their inhibitions. So generally, the English are regarded as fairly reserved, which foreigners regard as cold or standoffish. The English make a very big distinction between friends and acquaintances and between friends and close friends. So it's not that the English are cold or incapable of being open and expressive. This is Kate Fox in a great book, Watching the English. It's just that the English find it more difficult than other cultures to be uninhibited among people we do not know well. And so it takes the English longer to get to know people well enough to shed our inhibitions. So the English ascribe so many magical powers to alcohol. It's amazing that anyone ever has sex in England without alcohol. So there are some universal rules about alcohol and drinking places. So in all cultures, alcohol is used as a symbolic punctuation mark to define, to facilitate, and to enhance the transition from one social state or context to another. So alcohol plays a vital role range from major life cycles, rites of passage, such as births, coming of age, marriage, death, to the daily transition from work time to playtime to home time. So alcohol is a symbolic vehicle for the work to play transition because it's associated exclusively with play, with recreation, fun, festivity, spontaneity, and relaxation, and it is regarded as antithetical to work. So there's a saying in the Talmud that you can see someone's character through how they handle their alcohol, how they handle their money, and how they handle their temper. But people who turn very nasty under the effects of alcohol, that nastiness is just barely under the surface, right? And so alcohol simply becomes an opportunity, an excuse to unleash what they really want to unleash. So just like a woman can do things to your soul, and alcohol can do things to your soul, but alcohol and a woman and a book and a podcast can't take you any way you don't already know where you want to go. Yeah, in vino veritas, right? It removes inhibitions, so it reveals who you are. So there are happy drunks. A lot of drunk people are very happy because these are people who are fundamentally happy. Look at Tom Brady, those videos of Tom Brady, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, after he won the Super Bowl and he got really drunk when Tampa Bay celebrated the victory. But he was a happy drunk because at his core, Tom Brady is a happy person. People who are nasty drunks, that means at core they're nasty people, right? So alcohol simply removes some of the inhibitions. Going online releases inhibitions. People will say things in this kind of context that they will be less likely to say face to face. But I'm not a completely different person here than I am when I walk outside and talk to friends. It's just that this space creates a little less inhibition. But going online or having a drink, it will affect my soul, but it won't take me any place that I don't want to go. What about gender reveal parties? I've never been to a gender reveal party. So Elliot, you're in San Francisco, you probably go to a lot of gender reveal parties. Progressive Conservative says, I'm a happy drunk, but my ex was a very unhappy drunk and she turned out to be quite nasty. Yeah, alcohol will reveal who you are, just like what happens to you when you lose your temper will often be quite an insight into your character or what you do with your money. So if you cheat with your money, cheating is probably integral to who you are. If you are generous and responsible with your money, then generosity and responsibility probably very much who you are. Okay, I like this Twitter account by Rolf Degen. He's a science writer on psychology, neuroscience, and evolution. And he looks at the latest academic studies and pulls out the bits that are the most interesting. So apparently in the absence of stresses, so stresses are things like family, kids, people tend to lead fairly dull lives. So research documents the pernicious effects of daily stresses on well-being, but often ignored in these studies are people reporting no stresses. Okay, people who report no stresses are generally older, male, unmarried, less likely to work, less likely to provide or receive emotional support, or experience positive daily events. They reported higher levels of effective well-being and fewer chronic health conditions, but they had lower levels of cognitive functioning. The only type of activity they reported with more frequency was watching TV. So daily stresses are a proxy to engagement in social activities. So daily stresses are known to increase reports of negative emotions, but these negative emotions motivate people to challenge their views, to challenge the way they live, to challenge their own opinions, and to change their lives. So this promotes healthy cognitive functioning. Mr. Ford, how many live streams do you do? It varies. So typically I'll do a live stream around 3 p.m. Weekdays until about 5 p.m. California time. And then occasionally I'll throw down an extra one earlier in the day. So it just depends on my schedule. So these morning live streams here from Los Angeles are quite unpredictable. It's just that I may read something, I may have a few spare minutes. And because I have a mentor in one of my 12-step programs who I was talking to about the effects of, say, of a book or a podcast or a movie on someone's personality, I had that great conversation, and he quoted in response this Eagles song, "I've got a peaceful, easy feeling." And I just love this line. I found out a long time ago what a woman can do to your soul. So other people can profoundly affect us, but she can't take you any way you don't already know how to go, right? So a book can change our soul, a movie can change our soul, music can change our soul, church can change our soul, but it's not going to take you anywhere you don't want to go. So you can see all the advertising in the world, but if you've had firsthand experience with a product, it's not going to shift you. If you're a committed Republican, all the political advertising in the world, it's not going to make you a Democrat. If you're a committed Democrat, all the political advertising in the world, all the news reports in the world, all the marketing in the world, it's not going to shift your basic politics. So if you've had great experiences with Diet Pepsi, okay, all the advertising in the world's not going to shift you. If you've had bad experience with Diet Pepsi, all the advertising in the world's not going to shift you. Once you have a first-hand experience with something, all the advertising in the world is not going to shift you. So what advertising and marketing can do is that they can incrementally move you over a notch. So instead of being a passive supporter, you can become a more active supporter or a more active consumer of something. Or if you've forgotten about a particular product, advertising can say, oh yeah, I had to remind you that you had good experiences with this product, you want to buy it again. Or if you have no experience with a product and you see it might meet a need, you'll give it a try. But if you try a product based on a TV ad and you have a bad experience with the product, all the ads in the world are not going to change you. So this goes back to a theme of this show, that people are not born gullible. We did not evolve to be gullible. We were not born yesterday, to quote the title of that great book by Hugo Mercier. So advertising, marketing, rhetoric, propaganda, news media has much less of an effect on people than is popularly understood. So I do live streams with Reb Duvid in the afternoon periodically. So there's no rhyme or reason. I'd say probably average one a week. So I probably average, I like Jonathan Haidt. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Haidt. So I probably average about an hour a week with Duvid, but it's absolutely episodic. There's no rhyme or reason. So some weeks I might have Reb Duvid on 3 times in the afternoon, and then other weeks not have him on at all. So it's just entirely episodic. There's no rhyme, reason, or schedule to bring Duvid on. It's just when he's got something he wants to talk about. I've got something I want to talk about with Duvid. And a lot of my other guests are just, it's just simply periodic. They decide to come on. Every time I do a major live stream, so this, I'm just talking to my iPhone, so I can't send any invites. But every time I do a regular live stream, I send invites to about a dozen people. And then whether they respond and come on the show depends, I guess, on their schedule, how intensely they feel about the topics I'm discussing on the stream, who's participating in the chat. Luke does as many live streams as Hashem demands. A boomer gave me a "Not My President" t-shirt with a picture of Biden behind the circle and slash. I cringed. Why did so many safety-valuing, well-to-do New Yorkers nevertheless support Democrats 100% of the time? Oh, because everyone in their profession does? Because everyone in their schooling does? Because it's what is aesthetically expected, is what's socially expected. And most of people's political predispositions are genetic. So people are born with certain genetic predispositions, and politics are like personality, a reflection of your genetic predispositions. Okay. Rolf Deegan here. He's quoting various studies. Although high self-control is usually deemed desirable, people prefer to socialize with others with low self-control. Like, people, generally speaking, prefer to watch live streamers with less self-control. Like, people with less self-control on a live stream are more authentic, emotionally authentic. They're more interesting, they're more provocative, they hold your attention more. So we like to hang out with people with lower levels of self-control, even though we prize high self-control with ourselves. I was watching your old streams you did with alt-right figures from 2017, 2018. What do you think has changed since that time? Well, the biggest change is that prior to that time, the alt-right were regarded as merry pranksters. And after that time, the alt-right has become regarded as Nazis. So on the one hand, they were just like this amusing, circus. And then after the shootings, the alt-right became seen as like heinous Nazis. So how am I celebrating Purim? I'm reading the Megillah. I'm listening to talks on Purim, and gonna have a big Purim Suda, a big Purim meal coming up. Maybe I should drink until I become a woke Democrat. I don't drink alcohol. They can still vote their interests and pretend they do not. Look, political differences aren't primarily just because people see the world differently. It's primarily because people experience the world differently, and that's from their genetics. So the reason that people are on the left or on the right is because they experience the world differently. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Yeah, Luke's streams are engaging because he has low self-control, and at any moment he can whip out his didgeridoo. Yeah, I'm keeping a diary with all my peak didgeridoo experiences. So ever since I went on the wagon with no FAP in June 2013, now I just keep a diary where I write down my peak didgeridoo experiences. Bernard says he's waiting for 3 books by Delicious Tacos to arrive. Bernard says he read the novel Whatever by Houellebecq some weeks ago, found it a good read. I haven't read any novels by Houellebecq. I'm not sure if I can handle much more darkness in my life. Like, I pretty much unfollowed everyone on Twitter who's bitter. So people I follow on Twitter are either emotionally neutral or joyous. Now, I know if it enrages, it engages, but I don't want the toxicity that comes with that. Populations of whites that were solidly Republican a few generations ago are now solidly Democrat, and you cannot say that their genetics have changed. Populations of whites that were... Okay, so first of all, political party, I mean, how much does that correlate with real politics? So that's interesting. Populations of whites. So it used to be that Republicans were the party of the country club and the managerial class. And now the managerial class is increasingly Democratic, and the working class used to vote for the left-wing party. And now in the industrialized nations, the working class increasingly votes for right-wing parties. So yeah, genetics matter most in how one approaches authority. What am I doing to fight male toxicity? I am attending my 12-step meetings. Do I follow Catboy? No, but he's some of the videos I've seen, he's very funny. Hunter-gatherers burn the same number of daily calories as sedentary office workers in industrialized populations. Oh, okay, Elliot. What am I doing to fight systemic racism? Nothing. It doesn't exist. So, Elliot Blatt, this is for you. Meta-analysis of all sorts of academic studies shows low-calorie sweeteners help you to lose weight. Wow. I think I'll have a nice caffeine-free Diet Pepsi. So, consumption of low-calorie sweeteners versus sugar shows that they decrease body weight and they decrease daily energy intake. Beyond the effect of reduced sugar intake, there is no meaningful post-ingestive effect on energy balance. There was no difference in the effect on body weight between studies in which participants were blinded versus not blinded. Okay, so you want to lose weight? Go for the sugar-free options. I love a Diet Pepsi. You know, I used to be lonely. I used to not know who was my crowd. But then I joined the Pepsi generation. And now I have a community wherever I go, and it's young and it's hip and it's filled with life. Don't you want to join the Pepsi generation? Most people can't tell the difference between a Coke and a Pepsi. Water is better. Water is boring. Aren't you tired of being lonely? Don't you want to go where everybody knows your name? And they're always glad you came? Come on. Making your way in the world today, it takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? All those nights when you've got no lights, the check is in the mail, and your little angel hung the cat up by its tail, and your third fiance didn't show. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name. And where is that? That's with the Pepsi generation. Luke has silk sheets to lay on and silk sheets to play on. Roll out of bed. Mr. Coffee's dead. The morning's looking bright. And your shrink ran off to Europe and didn't even write. And your husband wants to be a girl. Be glad there's one place in the world where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You want to go where people know people are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name. And that place is the Pepsi generation. So cold and so refreshing, and so good. Not just tastes good; it's also good for you. Like this, what is it? What is this thing that people have against sugar substitutes, like low-calorie, sweeteners? People are just widespread, derision and hatred for sugar substitutes, and there's like very little backing for this. There's probably been no food product that has been more studied as to its safety and effectiveness than things like saccharin, like sugar substitutes. And it's about as safe as you can get. I mean, yeah, possibly you could drink 20 of these a day and it may not be so great for you. But to have a couple of diet sodas a day, it's safe. But people just have this bug in their bonnet. Oh, it's got to be natural. You got to drink the real sugar, the real orange juice. No. You want to stay slim? You want to have a body like mine? You think I got a body like mine? by eating sugar. No, I got this beautiful body. Okay, I got this beautiful body by drinking Diet Pepsi and Crystal Light. Crystal Light, very low calories. Okay, so Crystal Light, traditional classic orange. I mean, that's how I got a body like this. Like, I'm 54 years old and I look like an Adonis. How's Diet Coke for your teeth? Not so good. So, but look at my teeth. Do my teeth look like they're suffering from my diet drinks? Do you see a lot of problems with my teeth here? Do you think one or two diet sodas are just wreaking havoc on my teeth? Are these the teeth of someone who's suffering from one or two diet sodas a day? Is this a body that's suffering from one or two diet sodas a day? I mean, look at this. Look at this. Look, the opportunity cost. You could be drinking organic Concord grape juice. That is filled with sugar and high calories. These teeth look like those of a privileged white man. There's artificial sweeteners. There's no food that has been studied more intensely than artificial sweeteners. And they're as safe can be. I don't know why people don't trust them. It's just been exhaustively studied for decades and decades. Nothing has been more exhaustively studied than artificial sweeteners. And also, don't you want to go where everybody knows your name? Where they're always glad you came? Where everyone's treated the same? Join the Pepsi generation. Like, I found friends, I found community, I found a way of life. Pepsi generation's where it's at, bro. You can't trust those studies on artificial. Why? They're peer reviewed, bro. This Diet Pepsi, it's so refreshing. It's so good. There have just been studies upon studies upon studies upon studies upon studies for decades. Like, if they weren't safe, these soda companies would have been sued out of existence. Peer review doesn't matter if the peers suck. That is true. That's a great point. In this one beautiful 8-ounce can of Diet Pepsi, you know how many calories are in this? 0. Zip, zero, zilch. So cold and refreshing. And it joins me to a whole community of people, to a whole generation with a happy, positive outlook on life. The Pepsi generation. Have the effects of anal sex been studied? No, Elliot, but I really think you should study that. And please report back. Have I read The Republic of Science by Michael Polanyi? No. Pepsi is for racists. Exactly. But there's a whole big, beautiful generation drinking Pepsi. The nicest, kindest, finest people I met belong to the Pepsi generation. Believe me. Shocking news from the Academy. Men regret more having missed out on opportunities for casual sex. Women regret more having jumped at them. Both sexes fail to act upon the lesson. Shocking news. Internationally highly respected German psychology professor Hans-Ulrich Witschen falls off the pedestal in a swamp of misconduct and data manipulation. Study. Superiority in recognizing faces is associated with a superiority in recognizing voices. Shocking. Social media use for news is positively linked to uncivil political discussion and to unfriending. So using social media for news significantly directly increases users' likelihood of engaging in uncivil political discussions and in unfriending. Uncivil discussions lead to social media unfriending. And social media companies, when they release news via social media, it tends to be much more emotionally dark. Okay, I'm not a big a big. I don't have a lot of fear of crowds. Like a lot of people think, oh, crowds are dangerous. Crowds can get whipped up into frenzies. Dr. Pepper is not better than Diet Pepsi. People tend to overestimate the intensity of a crowd's average emotion. Both left and right-leaning news organizations expressed more negative than positive effect on Twitter, and these gloomy posts spread further than favorable ones. So if you're enraged, you'll engage on social media. Political like-mindedness does not seem to play a major role in tie building for most Facebook users. Sociosexuality, the willingness to engage in casual sex, can be read from men's but not from women's facial shape. Sexual boredom is a bigger problem for men and for narcissists. Advice giving breeds overconfidence in the advisors. So unlike judgments made in private, advice context invokes strategic social concerns that increase overconfidence in advice. So advice professionals express more overconfidence than private decision makers. The prevalence of overconfident advice is that advice seekers fail to hold advisors accountable for their overconfidence. Overconfidence is not driven by self-deception or a sincere desire to be helpful. It reflects strategic self-promotion. Many real-world advice contexts present advisors with motives to project competence to an audience. These motives result in advisors strategically employing overconfidence as a means of self-promoting their expertise. That's why almost everyone on a live stream or on social media giving advice, certainly those who do it in a professional context to earn a living, tend to dramatically have way more confidence in their own abilities than is warranted. So with social media providing more avenues for advice professionals to self-promote their expertise, punishing their overconfident claims is unlikely to override their tendency to be strategically overconfident. Depends on the crowd, does it not? Yes. Oh, Curious Gazelle threw down a question and then retracted it. Oh, Brick Lane. So Brick Lane, yes, Brick Lane, 2007 film. It was haunting. So it takes place in London after the 9/11 attacks, and tells the story of Nazanin. Grows up in rural India, and she's sent to the United Kingdom to marry a much older guy who she does not love. And so she raises two daughters. Her life is not pleasant. She does not love her husband. And but she is submissive to him for the sake of peace and for the sake of her children. And then she begins an affair with a guy who turns out to be a terrorist. Yes, Brick Lane. That's the movie. What do I do for exercise? I go for walks. I have a morning exercise routine. What was that called when you just rest on your arms and your feet? Come on. You know, I'm just like resting here like this. It's supposed to be good for your core. I do that. Planks. Yeah, I do planks every morning. Yeah, live stream when I get my COVID-19. So Curious Gazelle, have you seen Brick Lane? Yeah, it surprised me. And then I've got an exercise bike. I like to ride my bike while watching movies, TV shows, documentaries, sports. Okay, what's the biggest single factor that drives people to becoming incels? Lack of flirting capacity, according to one study. Conservatives are less inclined to accept harmful actions for the greater good than liberals. Weakening belief in free will fails to have the downstream effects on people's worldviews that have been made popular. So we found little evidence that manipulating free will belief has any downstream consequences on attitudes, behavior, or cognition. This brings into question prior claims of a causal relationship between belief in free will and behavior, thoughts, and attitudes. Confronting individuals with anti-free will viewpoints might not have as strong consequences as previously assumed. Biological age rather than chronological age seems to be the critical risk factor for COVID. So advanced age and comorbidity do not appear to justify alone COVID-19 related mortality. So there is a well-established surrogate marker of biological age, frailty. So what's the difference between biological age and chronological age? Okay. So chronological age is the number of years a person has been alive, while biological age refers to how old a person seems. So biological age, also referred to as physiological age, takes many lifestyle factors into consideration, including diet, exercise, and sleeping habits. Okay. Yeah, I guess I did enjoy Brick Lane. It surprised me. Robert, I think things are mostly going well. I have nothing bad to say about anyone or anything. I am content with my lot in life. I support what most good people support. Large-scale study corroborates that the vast majority of Americans consume relatively moderate media diets, making a mockery of the elitist caricature of ideologues in echo chambers. So most people across the political spectrum have moderate media diets. Browsing for news about politics is a rare activity. No more than 7 to 9% of total web visits to news site was to pages with hard news. Republican and Democrat media diets have about a 65% overlap in 2015, a 50% overlap in 2016. So contrary to dire predictions that Americans would use the internet to cocoon themselves into mutually exclusive echo chambers, leading to polarization of attitudes and irreconcilable factual beliefs, I instead find a pattern of overlap in people's media consumption patterns. Up to 90% of terrorists showed some type of leaking of their intentions prior to the attacks. So people just can't go out and commit mass murder without it becoming obvious. Like you have to kind of whip yourself up into a fury or a frenzy before you do something really horrible or heinous. So there are certain warning signs of stress on a person's face and in their voice that they might be gearing up to do something really bad. Twitter professionals tend to perceive accounts that disagree with their side as social bots. People tend not to admit to themselves that they value their own right to free speech more than they value the right of others to free speech. People generally condone the telling of lies, and they even want to be lied to if it prevents unnecessary harm. That accords with my understanding of reality. Most people indulge in between 2 and 4 passions. Most psychological benefits from a passion derive from one's favorite and second favorite activity. Strangers to ourselves. People are not good at knowing themselves. Self-ratings of internal neutral traits such as anxiety and self-esteem were better than friends' ratings at predicting behavior. The friends' ratings of evaluative traits such as intelligence and creativity were better than self-ratings. Close others are often better than the self at predicting the very desirable or undesirable outcomes, such as college GPA, relationship dissolution, psychopathology. Both sexes were more committed to a relationship with an attractive partner. Why are many sex differences larger in wealthier, more gender egalitarian countries? Because sexually selected traits tend to decay in unfavorable environments. Oh, this is good. The comfort of strangers. Even very subtle interactions with strangers yield short-term happiness. So this may be one reason why a lot of people are unhappy with under lockdowns. We need other people. So most of our interactions with strangers are benign, and most of these interactions enhance our well-being. So even a smile, a nod, hi, how are you with strangers tends to make us feel better. So places where it's easier to meet strangers and form new relationships are associated with greater feelings of well-being. So yeah, I feel that in Los Angeles, California, that it's fairly easy to meet strangers, and that makes me happy. People I notice in California tend to be pretty outgoing, happy, friendly. So just greeting a stranger, smiling, nodding, brief conversations considerably boost our happiness levels. How do I feel about mental health revisionism when looking at historical figures, including someone as recent as Henry Kissinger? I'm sure it can be done well and it can be done badly. So I guess it depends on how well it's done and how accurate it is. I find that sleep is becoming more important to my overall health. I used to go without when I was younger. That doesn't work anymore. Now, I do notice I need less sleep in my 50s than I needed in my teens, 20s, and 30s. But I think, yeah, getting more sleep is probably the single easiest, most dramatic one thing you can do to improve your health. So I never stop trying little improvements to my sleep. So I'm always alert to new things to do to improve the quality of my sleep. And that's it for right now. Talk to you guys later.